So, warm greetings and welcome to this meditation session. And as a introduction to the meditation, and also partly to introduction to the talk I'll be giving, imagine that you're standing in front of a store window, and there's some object in the store on display that you would like. And not only would you like it, but you're very excited about having it, and your mind begins racing about how you can get it, and your body is excited, and you're kind of leaning into the window and studying the object carefully, and maybe the store is closed, and so you're kind of going to open soon, and your excitement is there, and you start pacing back and forth and looking with all the excitement of getting this maybe wonderful thing. The excitement that you have is not found in the window. The glass of the window, which you require to see through into the store, is free of that excitement, and we might call it, it's just there peacefully, calmly, in its own way, like a serene lake in the early morning, just completely quiet and peaceful and undisturbed. So the glass just stays there. As the light of what's the object in the store, the light of it comes into the eyes, the lens of the eyes is just there in a relatively peaceful way and doesn't share the excitement. It's just kind of their own kind of glass through which the light passes. The retina on the back of the eye certainly gets a little excited by the light that comes in, but it doesn't get excited by your thoughts and your desires. It's just operating peacefully in its own way. And the neurons sending signals from the retina into your brain, it's a certain kind of excitement of neurons, but it doesn't share the excitement of your desire. And as you go back into the mind, you come to the place where the excitement is. The excitement is in the desire, the thoughts around it, the thoughts of the pleasure, the enjoyment, the benefit you get from this object, the strong, and then this desire becomes quite strong, quite intense, and so the excitement in the mind gets stronger and more intense. And that excitement and desire and the thoughts around it then send signals back to the eyes, and the muscles around the eyes begin to kind of tighten, and you're staring at the object, or your eyes are kind of jumping around quickly, studying all the different parts of the object, and really getting to study it in the excitement. And maybe your body's getting the signal to lean forward, and maybe even press your nose against the glass to really kind of, see this object carefully. So the excitement gets transferred into the eyes, into the body in various ways, the pacing back and forth. What we might call excitement, the ancient tradition calls fire. And there's this fire that gets lit up in the mind, and that fire then can transfer to the body, to speech, and all kinds of places. And the idea of Buddhist practice is to the unnecessary fires that we carry within us, to begin taking away, in a sense, the fuel which perpetuates the fire. That fire is only there because there's fuel. We'll be adding to it. And so with mindfulness practice is a little bit more like the glass in the window. It's just seeing clearly without it being excited about what it's looking at. And so if what we're mindful of is mental excitement, the mindfulness is not excited, it just sees it. In modern world, we talk about non-judgmentally or non-reactively. It just sees it. And why this is so powerful is it begins to offer a kind of presence to our experience, which is not fueling the fires, not adding more desires, more thoughts to it, excitement which excites itself. And we're slowly learning how to see very clearly and be present without adding anything to the fire. And then the fire can abate. This excitement can abate. And then we have an experience of the body, the eyes, and everything beginning to calm down and settle. and beginning to have the possibility of itself experiencing the kind of peace that you might pick up or feel or project from a very quiet, pure, clean a mountain lake that's just very still, very quiet, very clear, and free of the fires. And the difference between the English word excitement and fire in the ancient world is that fire burns. It really hurts. It can harm. And we don't necessarily get that feeling from the English word excitement. Sometimes that's a good thing to be excited. So to take a meditation posture and some care in the posture, to have a posture that allows the fires, the excitements of the mind, heart, to begin to calm down, to quiet. Closing your eyes and taking a few moments to feel if there is any excitement in the body, in the mind, in the heart. Any kind of extra charge or strong vibration or strong energetic fields. And with the awareness to make lots of room for whatever excitement is here. For whatever is energized a little bit more than as you would be if you were settled. It's okay. And then to gently having your breathing go through the excitement that you have, whatever energy, anything's energized, a little bit more energized than feels settled. Take some deep breaths, breathe through that excitement. And as you exhale, let it quiet, let it become stiller. In the way that a fire becomes calmer when the fuel for the fire is removed or abates. And letting your breathing return to normal. And some of the extra excitement or fires of the mind are manifested in the tensions in the body. And so you might scan through your body and relax whatever is easy to relax. Maybe the muscles around the eyes can soften. Maybe the muscles of the face. Maybe the shoulders. And the belly. And then to gently but dedicatingly bringing your awareness to your breathing. Being present for the breathing with the simplicity of an unexcited pane of glass that allows there to be seeing of what is, but in the seeing itself, there doesn't have to be any reactivity. It's just seeing the breath, the inhales and exhales coming and going. And then as you sit here, if something gets excited within you, thoughts or feelings that take your attention away from your breathing, or get you to lose your present moment awareness, see if you can bring this non-reactive mindfulness to whatever it is that's excited you, grabbed you, distracted you. And no need to get rid of it, what you're mindful of. But see if there can be the mindfulness that doesn't add any fuel to the fire. Just aware, just mindful. If you're caught up in thoughts, that's understood to be an excitement or a fire in the mind. Let the mindfulness that knows that be cool, a cooling effect on that excitement. Not dismissive or aversive, but just allowing the fires to burn out. And as we come to the end of this sitting, you might reflect on how the absence of distraction in the mind, the absence of preoccupations, can allow you to be more present for the people in your life. Listening better, being more attuned to them, understanding them better. And in that greater mindfulness and less distraction, to have fewer projections and fewer bias and fewer desires and aversions influencing how you see the other. When the fires of the mind have become cool, then the warmth of the heart has a chance to connect us to others, to care for others, to love others. And may it be that the calming of our excitement translates or results in the warming of the heart. And so we can go out into the world warm-hearted, kind-hearted, generous-hearted. And may it be that this practice that we do is for the welfare and happiness of the world. Maybe one conversation at a time, one smile at a time, one little gesture of generosity at a time. May it be that our meditation together as a community, may the goodness of it, the benefit of it spread outwards in all directions. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be free. And may we contribute to that possibility. So again, good day, greetings, warm greetings. And the topic of these talks this week is Nibbana, or in English in a sense called Nirvana, the Sanskrit word. And it's often seen as the ultimate goal in Buddhism. And one of the primary etymological kind of explanations of what Nibbana means is it comes from the expression to blow out a fire. But when it comes into the Buddhist the teachings of the Buddha, it isn't the activity, the action of blowing the fire out, but rather it refers to the fire going out. When the fuel is removed. And so the extinguishing of a fire when its fuel is burned up. So the going out of the flame. And now this kind of a negative idea of an ultimate goal has to be put in a context. And the context is in ancient India, time of the Buddha, the Brahmanical religions, one of the dominant religions of his time, had these Brahmin priests whose part of the important functions or practices of these priests was fire rituals, sacred fire rituals, often where the idea was to fuel a fire, to add a ghee, oil into the fire to keep it going, wood into the fire to keep it going, putting in sacrificial objects into the fire for the gods. And so they say that there's supposed to have been 3 sacramental fires, that part of the religion, both the fires of sacrifice, but also aspects of, metaphorically, fires of the soul, in a sense, the Atman, fires of the Brahman, the ultimate kind of being of the universe, and the fire of the sun. And these different fires, whether it's a sacrifice or these kind of metaphoric fires in ourselves, in the world, then are kept going and fueled by the Brahmins. The Buddha changed the meanings of the 3 fires of the Brahmins, and he talked about the 3 fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. And those are the fires that Nirvana blows out, gets extinguished, goes out with practice. The fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. There's a very famous teachings of the Buddha that's often in English is called the Fire Sermon. T.S. Eliot's famous poem, The Four Quartets. The title of one of the quartets is called The Fire Sermon, based on these teachings of the Buddha. And the Fire Sermon, I remember seeing a book on the 100 greatest speeches ever given in history, and the Buddha's Fire Sermon is one of them. And it goes, I'll just do a very snippet of it. It goes something like, the world is on fire. The eyes are on fire. The ears are on fire. The nose is on fire. The tongue is on fire. The body is on fire. The mind is on fire. What is it on fire with? The fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. And the primary definition of Nibbana, this Nirvana, teachings of the Buddha, it's the ending of those 3 fires. So it's not an extinguishing of life, not an extinguishing of everything, but it's an extinguishing of this particular forms of excitement that humans can be caught up in, that have the aspect of burning us. Burning is harm. And this idea of a fire that burns, harming us, is closely related to this idea of suffering in Buddhism. One of the fundamental teachings is Buddhism is about the end of suffering. And Nibbana is described sometimes as the end of suffering. It's the end of the fires of greed, hate, and delusions, end of the burning that goes on. And this idea that Nirvana is the end of something is actually very important to understand. And the metaphor of fire, that fire is kept going by the fuel that feeds it, reflects back to the idea of practice, being a practice of beginning to no longer add fuel to the fires, the excitement, the attachments, the greed, the hatred that we have. And it's not so much a forceful extinguishing of something, but rather no longer adding the fuel. And so this is one of the functions of meditation practice, mindfulness practice, concentration practice, is to let the mind become very self-satisfied, self-enjoying, present, connected here, so that the mindfulness, the attention, is not reaching out to anything, not wanting something, not pushing something away, not confused by things, deluded by things, but is able to stay present in a clear, luminous way. And that luminosity and clarity that allows things to be as they are is a presence and attention that doesn't add fuel to anything. And so part of what we're learning to do in Buddhist meditation practice is how to be luminously present, clearly present with attention, but without adding to the fire and letting it then go out. And the language is often used that's related to Nibbana is cooling. Things that are hot or excited go cool. And they say that this metaphor of the cooling of the mind that practice does works better as a metaphor in India, where it's a very hot climate, and where cooling is just such a refreshing, peaceful thing to experience. And they say that in that regard, in the English language, growing up in the rainy, foggy, cold English climate, the idea of cold or cool has very different connotations, kind of culturally or emotionally, in English than it does in India. But this refreshment, the refreshing of the mind. So the fires go out, and then we come to this English word enlightenment for awakening. It's kind of a synonym sometimes for Nibbana. And it's a little strange to use that to translate Nibbana. But certainly the Buddha talks about how when there's awakening, when there's this ending of the fires, then it's replaced by a luminosity, a radiance that's there. And a radiance, light, as a metaphor, doesn't hurt. It doesn't burn. Light just shines on things so that we can clearly see what's there. And with that clarity, then all kinds of things are possible that are not possible if we're on fire. So, thank you. The Wasteland, not the Four Quartets, for T.S. Eliot. So the fires of greed, hate, and delusion go out, and it becomes cooler. And the language of and the richness of this word Nibbana and the related word Nibbuti is that it is in its original context. It doesn't. People didn't hear it only as the ending of something, but they also heard it as referring to health, and also to a happiness, and sometimes Nibbana is called a great happiness, and the related word, kind of a past participle of it, kind of is nibbuti, nibbutta, and that is also used for the word happiness. And there's actually sometimes wordplay in Pali texts between the same kind of word is used, the happiness of liberation, the happiness of freedom, the happiness of nirvana, the happiness of release, and it's nibbute nibbutam. So you have to kind of using both those terms. So the association of the going out of the flames of greed, hate, and delusion is that it leaves us with luminosity, with happiness, with well-being. It's a very positive message that sometimes is lost in English, when Nibbana is described as the extinguishing, the quenching of thirst, the quenching of greed, hate, and delusion. The quenching is kind of not such a, for many people, I think, not very appealing idea. But it's not really the blowing out or the quenching. It's the it's not the blowing out. It's the going out. It's allowing something to just dissipate because it's not being fed. And so you might think about this for the next while, about how is it that you feed and fuel your excitement. And maybe you don't want to use the word fires of the mind, but maybe the excitement of the mind. How does it get fueled? How do you add to it if you have strong desire and craving, greed? In what ways does the mind keep it going and fueling it? If you have aversions, jealousy, hostilities, to what degree does the mind keep fueling it and adding to it, adding fire to the fire, fuel to the fire? And if you're bewildered and perplexed and confused and uncommitted, not knowing what to do, what is happening in the mind? What are you doing to keep fueling that fire, that excitement, that agitation? And maybe rather than excitement, maybe we could use agitation instead of the word fire, how we get agitated. So how do you do that? What are you doing? What's happening in your own mind? And then when you kind of see that clearly, what is it like to pull away, step away, so that you're no longer adding that fuel? You're not letting go of anything. You're just not feeding it. What happens then? So, the most common definition for the Buddha for Nibbana, Nirvana, is the destruction of greed, hatred, and delusion. And that teaching gets repeated a lot in the suttas. And so hopefully this little talk gives you the kind of a bigger context for understanding why the Buddha would make this the goal of practice, the destruction of greed, hatred, and delusion, the destructions of the fires that burn us. So, thank you, and we'll continue on this theme tomorrow.